Hi guys, it's Dr. Salcedo, your conscious gynecologist. And today what we're going to be talking about is a vitamin that we talk about all the time, and I think it's totally underrated because we hear about it so often with everyone with such a low vitamin D deficiency that we kind of forget. But today I want to talk about why vitamin D is so important and how it relates to endometriosis. So, let's get to it. So, specifically vitamin D, man, in my endometriosis practice, when I do a panel of an evaluation of endometriosis nutrient deficiencies and abnormalities, 90% of the time I see women who are deficient in vitamin D3. And particularly, I see them in levels below 20 nanograms per milliliter. Now, that's a big deal because 20 to 30 is actually considered the barely like functional level. It's like your body's barely getting enough for what it needs, and it's actually considered the normal level in laboratory intervals when we look at this. So really optimal vitamin D levels should be in the 40s to 50s, and some people even say in the 60s. And so how do you get this? And how does this relate to endometriosis? Well, we know that endometriosis is an inflammatory condition. It's a gut microbiome disorder, and it's heavily correlated with diet. Now, that being said, low levels of vitamin D are highly associated with polycystic ovarian syndrome, and many women who have endometriosis have some sort of form of PCOS tendency. So, vitamin D is actually heavily involved in various metabolic and hormone regulatory processes in the body. It's actually a hormone, and it's involved in immune regulation and reduction of angiogenesis. Now, immune regulation specifically, vitamin D actually allows T regulatory cells and secretion of interleukin 10. Now, these are huge anti inflammatory molecules and cell lines that help our body process foreign invaders, and it regulates how our body attacks an immune response when we are exposed to something that shouldn't be there. Now, if we think about endometriosis as leaky gut, those leakage of inflammatory molecules are going to be leaking through into our pelvis. Now, if we have normal levels of vitamin D, interleukin, which is a cytokine, a protein that's produced by immune cells, primarily acts as an anti-inflammatory agent, which helps suppress excessive, exaggerated immune response, and it limits tissue damage, and it helps that there be less of an inflammatory response by macrophages and T cells. It actually acts as a brakes for an inflammation on the body, and so that's how it downregulates inflammation response. Now, also, studies show that vitamin D helps reduce angiogenesis, which is something called new blood growth, new blood vessel growth within cells and organs that shouldn't be there, particularly as it relates to endometriosis. Because remember, endometriosis is cells of the lining of the uterus that go and implant in various areas of the pelvis. That has to do with inflammation that's already present in the pelvis, and that inflammation that's already present in the pelvis comes from gut dysbiosis, gut microbiome problems. And so if vitamin D helps regulate angiogenesis, that means that it's going to decrease the amount of new blood vessel growth of the cells of the lining of the uterus into various areas of the pelvis, so that it won't do that. So the body's immune system will process those cells normally and not cause new blood supply of those cells of the lining of the uterus into the pelvis, which causes that scarring and discomfort. And so studies show that low vitamin D is associated negatively with the symptoms of disease and severity of endometriosis, which means the worse lower the vitamin D levels that you have in your body, the worse your disease symptoms are going to be with endometriosis, because vitamin D helps regulate immune response and decreases pathologic angiogenesis. Okay. Now, what are the sources of vitamin D? Well, vitamin D, I mean, yes, we hear about it all the time. Go outside, get some vitamin D. But that's only one source. Can you believe that really sources of vitamin D actually come from animal proteins? And remember, more and more in modern culture, we're not eating animal proteins, and that's what our ancestors used to eat. And now we have so much processed food that, get this, are fortified with vitamin D because these big pharma and food places know that our body is so deficient. They're actually adding it, but that's not the best way to receive it. We need to be receiving vitamin D from the source. We need to be receiving it from oily fish, mackerel, salmon, sardines, tuna. All those are really great sources of vitamin D. From mushrooms like shiitake mushrooms, because when shiitake mushrooms receive ultraviolet light, there's a molecular mechanism that causes there to be an increase in vitamin D in the cells of the mushroom itself. Also, egg yolks have tons of vitamin D, and there's a lot of people out there that ask for like egg white omelets and stuff. Definitely not the way to go. That might as well be eating air. We gotta eat the egg yolk because that has all the good stuff like vitamin D. Beef and chicken livers, they were so full of vitamin D. And so because we don't really culturally eat liver anymore, we're automatically deficient. And finally, cheese. Things like mozzarella and cheddar do have some small sources of vitamin D. And so these are really great everyday things that we can start including in our body. Of course, vitamin D supplementation, and that's very helpful, but sometimes it's just not enough to get our body up to the normal level. I hear it all the time. My patients are always saying, hey, I'm having 2,000 international units a day of vitamin D capsules. I'm still not into the 30s or 40s or 50s. You got to include it in your normal food. You got to consider eating organ meat or supplementing with cod liver oil to really help with those vitamin D processes that your body so craves when it has inflammation related to endometriosis. So if you take any takeaways today, endometriosis is an inflammatory disorder. We got to reduce that inflammation by adding normal vitamins that our bodies were used to with animal proteins, because that helps down-regulate your immune system so that it doesn't go overact and cause scarring, and it helps reduce new blood vessel growth that can cause more endometriosis. So that's it. I hope you found this helpful. If you're interested in a consultation, check out consciousgynecology.com, and I'll be able to help you. My personal mobile phone number is there, and as well as my email address and a way to make an appointment. I would love to help you through your specifics of your journey, and we'll see you at our next video.